Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give just a couple more minutes as people are trying to get into the room, and then we'll start. Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. This will be recorded, so if anyone is late getting in or you get disconnected, there will be a recording and it will be placed on our agency YouTube channel, and we will upload the PowerPoint onto our website as well. So thank you very much. My name is Janine Balek, and I'm our Boating Facilities Program Manager at the Marine Board. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And just to let everybody know, when I'm sharing my screen, I can't see anyone who's participating or any chat. So if you have questions, please feel free to unmute or write it into the chat and we'll get to it. So hopefully everyone can see the screen. Want to make sure that everybody's here to learn about our non-motorized boating education and outreach. So the whole focus of this session really is about ways to increase opportunities to experience non-motorized boating. And that can be a varied application from led trips or guided trips to purchasing equipment, creating multilingual videos, purchasing some adaptive appliances to either help with the boat or to help transfer into a boat, as well as training your staff and doing different kinds of events to help new to non-motorized boating people have a very positive time. So who can apply? Cities, counties, ports, park districts, all of them, governmental entities, but non-governmental organizations. So I highlighted that because as of now, NGOs are the only parties that have applied for grants to do education and outreach. Um, Now, a non-governmental organization can be a nonprofit. You can be a club, a utility company, a school district, a charter school, a business, pretty much anybody who wants to do some form of education and outreach focused on non-motorized boating. And this is statewide. So most of the applications have been around the Willamette Valley. We've had a couple um, in Southern Oregon, but this really is for a statewide application. So types of projects. Everything from day or overnight paddling trips, where essentially it's a guided trip where instructors are showing people the proper way to paddle, how to read the water, understanding the conditions, waterway rules, to even having events where there will be a special event to have people experience. A lot of times, people who are new to paddling, they don't know what type of boat, what type of paddle, how to hold the paddle, and so opportunity to help educate them. So when they do get that experience, it's a positive and safe. We also can help with uh, events. So I'm talking to a group right now who is having difficulty finding a aquatics or swimming pool where they can practice self-rescue. So they've asked for some ideas, and we're trying to connect people together so they can do some free clinics for people to practice self-rescue, which is an important skill to know when you're out paddling. Um, Adaptive pieces. So the upper one is a new kind of equipment. It's hard to tell from the photo, but underneath the seat, so your upper left, there are giant wheels. So the person would transfer from a wheelchair into a flat or an upper parking area, and then the wheels would allow somebody to pull them to the water, and they would reverse it when they are exiting. So it's a new piece of equipment that is, uh, I want to say it entered the market about a year and a half ago or so. Two little folding ramps to help in areas where maybe you're launching off of a gravel bar and it's hard for somebody to transit that area. There are portable ramps that can be elevated. They can bridge just a gravelly surface with a low slope that improves accessibility to help get people out onto the water. And then videos, multilingual signage. If you have an organization that is going to participate in a community event where there is a focus on water and a nexus for boating, consider having a booth and providing information, connecting folks to that water resource so that when they go out and enjoy it, they're doing it safely, but they also feel more confident in their equipment, the clothing, the preparation, so that they don't get themselves in trouble. Matching resources. So we do look for a minimum of 25%, and it can come from cash or other sources of grant funds that you may have received. But we also look at your equipment, your labor, the materials. So many organizations have their own kayaks or paddles or life jackets. That is great match. If you're providing an opportunity for people to use that equipment on a guided trip, you get credit for that equipment. We allow the average cost of a rental. Um, Transportation is another big one, getting people to and from places. If you are providing that with your own vehicles, or that's a great match. Um, Food food is a big one, especially with our often traditional underserved or marginalized communities. Food is a big part of these events. So if you're going to have snacks or breaks or stop and let them have a chance to stand up, stretch their legs before continuing on a trip, consider including food. We've had some applicants who've actually had food donated by local businesses. That's another great source of match. If staff have to do first aid training, wonderful source of match as well. Or if your staff need to get that training, you can apply for a grant um, for them to become first aid certified in order to lead um, trips out there with folks. And then administration, administering the project, uh, doing the reimbursement process, that all takes time for you as well. So if you're not sure if something qualifies, let us know. We try to be very reasonable, and if the match is reasonable and necessary for the successful completion, its chances are likely that it's either eligible for our funding or a great source of match to our grant. So timing, we are currently accepting applications to March 13th. We do 3 grant funding cycles within our 2-year budget period. Cycle 3 is highlighted because whether we have funding available or not will largely depend on whether or not projects had cost increases or there were emergencies. It may reduce the amount of available funding to where it's a very small amount. And in that case, we roll it into our small grant program. And then we try to heavily market that toward the end of our budget cycle. Applications are reviewed through um, a evaluation process that includes public comment as well as review for our boating safety program, our policy and environmental program, and our outfitter and guide program. So grant limitations. This is for non-motorized boating education and opportunities. Uh, and then all work must be completed within our budget cycle. So we're talking about a funding opportunity for the 2023, which will be July 1st of 23 to June 30th of 25. So everything has to be completed by that June 30th of 2025 deadline. And then if you have a project that is under $50,000, consider applying for a small grant program. We take applications at any time, and it may be a better fit. It's a more streamlined program. With our regular program, we don't have a maximum amount, and a project can be phased. So I say that as an example, we had an applicant who wanted to try a pilot project to see if it worked well. And so they applied for the pilot component to see what they wanted to modify, what was successful, what needed to have some adjustments. And then the following cycle, they applied for a 2-year project to help get that pilot program underway and have some good footing underneath it to continue. Like I mentioned, there is a public comment process. We post applications on our website and we share it through social media. We send it out to outfitter and guides through our interested parties listserv. We also send it to sister agencies, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and state parks, and ask them to share it as well. And we will notify you so you can put it on your website, your social media, and do your own marketing to let people know there's an opportunity to comment on your project. Now, tribal consultation, I asterisked it because that really only applies if you're doing a ground disturbing activity. So if you apply to do life jacket kiosks or waypoint finding signage, boating safety signage, we would consult with Oregon's federally recognized tribal nations to give them an opportunity on whether or not they have any concerns or would like to have any archaeological work associated with the project. So when you do a physical improvement of the life jacket kiosk or signage, you will need to have the landowner's agreement that that work can happen on their property. And then all of these grants go to our board, and they will make the final decision to either approve, defer, or deny it. Staff does write recommendations, and the board may accept them or they may modify the application or the recommendation as well. So the evaluation process, so there's 550 points. The bulk of those points are on the project need and the importance of the project, as well as the project type. So this program is targeted on how we provide education and outreach to increase those opportunities to underserved communities. Our definition of underserved community is pretty broad. It looks at everything from ethnicity, education, economics, religious, sexual orientation, physical limitations. It's fairly broad, but that is our target audience. So we want to know through your application how you are going to market or promote this opportunity, what you're doing to those communities, and how you have done outreach to try to appeal to them. And then the type of project, hitting certain things. Are you improving accessibility or an opportunity for people with physical limitations to explore? If you're doing multiple things, we had an application, this current budget, where they were providing guided trips. They were creating videos of access so people with physical limitations can make a determination of themselves on whether or not that is a place that they could go, or they could go with having somebody to assist them. And they also did some education signs and equipment. So multiple facets, and they get points for all of the different items. Funding. So this funding is not just for education and outreach. This is how much funding we have available by grant cycle from the July 1st, 23 to June 30th of 25 for both education, outreach, and construction. I will say this program is there is not enough money to meet the needs out there. And so it is becoming very competitive, but don't let that detract you. Good projects rise to the top. And if it doesn't get funded, we will work with you on how to bolster or improve an application for a future grant cycle. So don't be discouraged, but understand it is highly competitive. And then all of the forms. So our forms are on our website. I want to draw attention that the education and outreach is a separate application from the construction. When this program first was approved by the legislature in 2019, our first grant cycle was in June of 2020. And what we heard from folks was to make it one application for both. And it really made it cumbersome for small organizations to apply. So we've modified it. It's now 2 applications. And so the education and outreach, it's a much smaller application, and hopefully doing that separation and streamlining some things will make it easier for people to apply. And then the reimbursement form. So when it comes time for you to fill out the reimbursement, it follows the same budget that is in the application, so it should help make it easier to submit requests to be reimbursed. I'm going to talk about our small grant programs, but before I do that, are there any questions about our competitive process? Okay, so our small grant program um, is exactly what it is. There's no application deadline. It's first come, first serve, and this is focused on uh, education outreach for non-motorized boating opportunities. Things still have to be completed within our budget cycle. Now, the difference is project total must be 50,000 or less, and the maximum Marine Board grant is $30,000. We do require a minimum of 25% match, and it does have a public comment process, but rather than the 30-day one for the competitive process, this is a 1-week opportunity. And the tribal consultation only is if there's ground disturbance. And then our director has the authority to approve, defer, or deny this, where our competitive one was board. I do want to put a plug that if you have a project or something in mind that can be completed by June 30th of 23, we do have some funding available, and I would encourage you to apply. And then this is the amount of money we are going to have for the next budget period, the 23-25. And if the money, I will say nobody has applied for um, a full $50,000 project. The average project size seems to be between 20 and 25,000. So this can actually go pretty far when you consider we're looking at a 25% match onto the project. And that is my contact information. I'd love to talk to anybody who has questions or ideas. I will say that this program is still relatively new. Um, if I didn't mention something that you're kind of thinking about, it doesn't mean it isn't eligible. It just means nobody's brought it forward and it isn't something we've thought of. So if you've got an idea, let us know because it may fit very well. If it's focused on educating and outreach for non-motorized boating, that's the big criteria. So I think we have some flexibility. We're looking for great ideas. Like I said, renting a swimming pool and having opportunities for folks to learn self-rescue. That wasn't one of the things we thought of immediately. Now we're talking to an organization who's interested in providing that for either for free or a nominal amount so that when they sign up, there's a higher commitment to actually show up. For whatever reason, when something is free, people sign up, but they don't always follow through, and that's a lost seat for somebody else. So um, if there's a fee, you can also ask the grant to cover it. Um, we have one organization who charged a fee, and then once somebody came and participated, the fee was refunded back to them. So those are some ideas. I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. So if you have questions or ideas, now is the time. I know several of you that are in this room and you're never this quiet. Um,
I have a question.
yes.
I was curious. You noted that staff training is an eligible activity to include. I'm curious about funding, partially funding a new staff position Is that something that would be potentially eligible?
It possibly could if that person is implementing an activity.
Mhm.
So we gave funding to an organization who was training people within the Latinx community to help lead a paddling trip.
Mhm.
And um, so we funded that paddle leader
Mhm.
and gave a stipend for the training associated with it. So yeah, it's very possible
Okay.
depending on what the person is doing.
Sure. That makes sense. All right. Thank you.
Mhm. Mark, I see your hand up.
I'm curious how we would manage, or how you would prefer to see a situation where we have either staff training in one cycle time period with say the season for that volunteer use in another one, or event preparation and planning months out ahead of time with the event on the other side of the June 30th, July one.
Mhm.
Is it a situation that's just too fraught and complicated that we should avoid it? Or is there a way to potentially manage that? And thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So we can approve pre-agreement match. And that's always a risk because until either our director through our small grant program or our board through our competitive program have approved a grant, there's no guarantee of funding. But we will have applicants who will expend staff resources or funding to do different aspects of a project in preparation for a larger project. And to have approval of that, you need to email me and just say, we intend to apply for a grant to do whatever it is. And we are going to complete staff training valued at $1,000. We'd like credit for that as pre-agreement match. And that's really easy for me to then write back, say, yes, this is approved based on the scope you gave me, and you can attach it to your application. It's an approved expense. It can be reimbursed after a grant is approved, if approved. And I want to make sure we understand there's no guarantee a grant will be approved, but it can either be part of your match or it could be eligible for reimbursement as a pre-agreement expense. Does that answer the question, Mark?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Mhm. Anything else? If you go away from this and you talk to some folks and you've got more questions, I'm an email or a phone call away. Sam, I see your hand.
Yeah. So, quick question about the competitive grant process. Do you have like do you have an idea as to percentages that you're targeting of like the construction? Because clearly construction and infrastructure is usually a little more expensive than the educational part, and you just kind of threw up some big numbers. I was kind of curious what the goal was of the agency for that.
I asked our board if they had any preconceived ideas on how much should be split either way. And I'm very fortunate. My board and I agreed good projects are going to rise to the top. We strategically made the construction and the education outreach point value for the evaluations the same
Okay.
so that a good project is going to rise to the top and should be funded. And, eventually we won't have funding. I mean, the funding is going to determine what goes forward and what doesn't, because we just don't have enough to meet the needs. But a good project will go forward. The board is very they really enjoy and they appreciate the positive aspects of the education and opportunity, I don't see a scenario where this would be 100% construction, 100% education. I think it really will always be good projects are going to get funded. And, and unfortunately, there's a lot of good projects that the
It's
money
real.
just won't stretch to.
Yeah, it's really competitive. So the last question I have, you mentioned NGOs, and I was just trying to get like your definition of that, and you included businesses. Like, would businesses be eligible for this?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you don't need to be a nonprofit.
No. Nope. I'm actually talking to a registered outfitter guide right now. He's a for-profit business, but he has been working with a disabled veterans organization, and he's going to be applying for some equipment to help facilitate getting in and out of his boats as he's taking them on different trips.
Cool.
And so, yeah, so a private business can apply.
Okay. Fair enough. Thanks for the info.
Yep.
Good seeing you. Thanks for the info. Talk to you in a bit.
No problem. Mark, do you have your hand up again?
I do.
Okay.
Partnerships. The organization that I work for, we do most of our work by working with other organizations or cities, counties, whatever. When you get into a partnership where there's a significant potential expenditure on our part or on the partner's part, how would you suggest managing that? Are these situations where it's best just to contact you if it's starting to get, like we're facilitating, but our facilitating may enable someone else to take on, the main project? I guess I'm sort of thinking as I'm talking, but I could see opportunities, just not quite sure, how best to manage that partnership relative to the funding.
Yeah, I would say if you're doing, let's say, trips, and you're using a city or county access site, and you've been talking to them about launching and retrieving at their site, and they said, yeah, sure, no problem, go ahead and do that. And maybe through this discussion, you've asked to have a special area reserved for your activity. There's a value to that. And I would say, see if you can get that entity to drop you an email that just says, hey, we're committed to supporting this activity, and to help facilitate it, we're going to reserve 2 parking spaces or an area of grass, or we're going to donate the group picnic shelter as a staging area. Have them just put in an email that they're doing that. And if they have an estimated value for that, because that's a great match. And if they're not sure of the value, then we can talk about, okay, if I Google, picnic shelter rentals, what am I going to find? Is it $100? Is it, $200? It just needs to be that reasonableness associated with it. But I would say, see if you can get them to just give you an email. It doesn't have to be on letterhead. It just needs to be something that says they've committed to partnering in some aspect with you. Are there other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
2 questions, actually. One, I think we've spoken about before, but I'm curious with overlapping grant cycles. If an organization has an outstanding grant, what needs to be wrapped up before they would be eligible for a future cycle?
So if you could actually have more than one grant in our budget cycle, there's nothing that says you can only have one. But let's say you are closing out one in a current budget cycle and you intend to apply for one in a new one. There's nothing that prohibits you from doing it. A lot of times to close out a grant, you're waiting for invoices or time to write a report or whatever it is. To close out something from the previous funding cycle, we need to have all the paperwork wrapped up basically by the end of August in order to hit our reporting periods for business services. It keeps our business services people happy with me, and that's what I want to do. But we can work through that. We can issue partial reimbursements or a final at the end. But you can have multiple. So let's say at the beginning of our budget cycle, you wanted to purchase some equipment to help facilitate boat-in camping. You needed to get some special pads or elevated platforms or something. You can apply for that. And then later on during cycle 2, you're like, oh, now I want to do X. You can have multiple grants.
Okay, that's helpful.
Mhm.
Thank you. And then my other question was, as you were talking about the limitations to funding, I'm wondering if the board considers partial funding of grants, or if, you know, someone asks for a lot of money or less money, how does that impact kind of decision making as you put those pieces together?
Yeah, so when we get the applications, they will go through the public comment process. They'll go through our agency review, and then they come back to me, and I sort them, see what's top, what's bottom, and where our funding falls. And if something is tight, like it's right on the cusp of could it be funded, could it not be funded, we reach out and ask, hey, could this be phased? Maybe instead of doing 20 trips, could you do 10 trips? Because I have enough money to make a recommendation for this level.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave money on the table. That doesn't benefit boaters. I want to be able to spend it all, or at least recommend it all. And then the board and the director will make a decision on whether we do or we don't. But we will work with you. It's not arbitrary where you get blindsided with our recommendation that says X. We do reach out and have a conversation, because there are times you may not be able to make it work.
Right. Okay, helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. If not, like I said, we're an email, a phone call away. If you start working on your application and you've got questions, call, email. I will have a new administrative assistant starting on Thursday. I'm really excited. My previous one retired, and it's going to take her a little bit of time to get fully acclimated into the position. Her name is Anne. So please be patient if you send something to her and she asks some newbie questions, because she's going to have a big learning curve. She's jumping in right in the middle of grants being closed and a new process. And we want success. We want this money out there. We want some positive experience for people to enjoy boating. This will be on our YouTube, and we will have our PowerPoint on our website as well. So if no more questions, thank you very much. You get back about 20 minutes of your day, and we appreciate you coming and doing this with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.